The Narada Parivrajaka Upanishad, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma, Part 9 of 13. In Part 9 of the Upanishad, Lord Brahma concludes the fifth Upadesha. This part also concludes the fifth chapter of the Upanishad and comprises verses 26 to 66. The Upanishad. Continuing with the fifth Upadesha, Lord Brahma says, Narad, remember this. A mendicant monk does not hanker after this world or the next. He does not crave for this world or the worlds of heaven, which have all kinds of enjoyments, but with a time limit to them. If a sannyasi has such expectations, then he ends up becoming the person in accordance with those expectations. By the ritual practices of the scriptures, other than the investigation of the Atma, the person is actually doing useless things, just like a burden of saffron, flowers borne by a camel. For such a person, there is no practice of the science of yoga, there is no pursuit of the instruction of Sankhya, nor is there any application of the mantras and of the rituals. If a sannyasi practices teachings other than that of self-realization, it is just like decorating a corpse. Just as a cobbler is far away from the performance of Vedic rituals, so is such a sannyasi far away from the practice of Brahma Vidya by the performance of such rituals. The sannyasi is not to devote himself to merely repeating the Pranav Om. Whatever activity he does, he has to reap the fruit of that activity. Therefore, the sannyasi shall discard all ritual acts, just like foam is discarded from castor. And being unclad, he should engage himself in self-realization, in realization of the Atma, with complete control over the mind, using the palms of the hands as alms bowl. Doing so, the mendicant monk shall truly renounce all worldly attachments. Like a child, a madman, or a goblin, the mendicant monk shall not desire either for death or for life. He shall just mark his time, just like a servant who awaits orders from his master. The ascetic who lives just on alms, but is otherwise devoid of qualities of forbearance, of wisdom, of dispassion, and of tranquility, etc., he is a disgrace to the conduct of ascetics. By merely carrying an emblematic staff, by merely keeping a shaven head, by wearing special dress, by putting on hypocritical airs of sagehood, by doing all this, liberation does not come to a person. The person who carries the staff of wisdom, he is said to be a single-staffed person. The ascetic who just carries the wooden stick, who eats all sorts of food, and who is devoid of wisdom, he goes to the terrible hells called Maharorav. Having a stable position in a monastery is said by great sages to be similar to the excreta of a pig. Therefore, a person should not stay in monasteries, but should move about like a hard-working worm. The Turyatit ascetic has his food and clothing without asking or begging for the same. These should come to him on their own. He shall be unclad and also bathe at others' will. The ascetic whose behavior is the same and in harmony in both the waking and the dream state, he is considered to be the best. He is the most excellent among those who follow the Vedanta, among those who follow the Upanishads. If a sannyasi does not receive any alms, he shall not grieve or be upset. And if he does not, and if he actually does receive alms, he should not feel joy or happiness. The sannyasi should avoid attachment to all material things and shall simply keep himself alive for the higher purpose. The sannyasi shall always shrink from being honored by admiring disciples, because the sannyasi who becomes such, who welcomes such honors, he gets bound with worldly ties, even though he considers himself to be liberated. For the sake of bare subsistence, an ascetic may go about for alms to the houses of approved classes of people, that is, the houses of twice born and the learned, at the proper time and after those people have dined, after those people have eaten, using the palms of his hands as a vessel to receive alms. The ascetic shall not solicit alms more than once in a day. He may eat the food given to him either standing or walking. He shall not ceremonially sip water in between. The ascetic, the sannyasi with pure thoughts, always keeps within the limits of good conduct, just like the sea. These great men never abandon the prescribed course of conduct, just as the sun never swerves from its prescribed path, just like the sun does not abandon its prescribed path. When the sannyasi seeks food with his mouth alone, like a cow, he shall then be equanimous among all beings. Such a one is then fit for immortality. For alms, the sannyasi goes to only those houses that are not forbidden. He shall avoid a house which is prohibited. He shall enter a house only if the door is open. He shall never go towards a house whose door is closed. Giving up all likes and dislikes, the sannyasi shall shelter for the night in a deserted house covered with dust, or he may shelter under a tree. The sannyasi shall go to sleep wherever he is when the sun sets. He does not have to do any ritual, and he has no fixed abode. He shall live on what comes to him at random, always being self-possessed and with the senses completely subdued. The sannyasi should leave human habitations and go to the forest. Having true knowledge and with the senses completely subdued, he moves about, waiting for the time of his death. Such a sannyasi becomes fit for absorption into Brahma. The sage who moves about without causing or even seeking to cause fear to any being, he in fact has nothing to fear from any being. A sannyasi is one who is free from pride, who is free from egoism, who is unaffected by the pairs of opposites, who has all his doubts dispelled. Such a one never gets angry, nor does he hate anyone, nor does he utter a false word. He moves in holy places, causing no injury to any living being, and he receives alms at the proper time. Such a sage is fit for absorption into Brahma. The sannyasi at no time shall associate himself with the forest dwellers or the vanprasts and the householders or the grihasts. He should move about unobtrusively. He shall not allow joy of any kind to enter into him. His path is indicated by the sun, and he should walk the earth unhurriedly like a worm that crawls on the earth. The ascetic shall neither perform nor cause others to perform actions that entail blessings and that cause injury, as well as those actions that are intended for the welfare of the world. The sannyasi shall not be attached to heterodox or to heretical doctrines, nor shall he pursue a means of livelihood. He should not indulge in assertive arguments, nor should he take sides in a debate. The sannyasi shall not have a following of disciples, nor should he study many books. The sannyasi shall not utilize a commentary, nor shall he initiate inaugural functions anywhere, without displaying any distinctive emblem or motive. The sannyasi shall show himself to the people as a madman or as a child or as a dumb person, though in fact he is very sane and very wise. The sannyasi shall neither do anything, nor shall he speak anything. He shall have no thoughts, good or bad. Delighting in the self, delighting in the Atma, the sage shall move about, leading this way of life. The sannyasi shall move about the land alone, free from any attachment, his senses always subdued, always playing with and rejoicing in the self, rejoicing in the Atma, always self-possessed, always equanimous, wise yet playful like a child, well-versed but giving the appearance of being dull-witted. The sannyasi shall go about on his journeys. Though learned, yet he should speak like a madman. Seeking food like a cow, the sannyasi shall walk the path of the Upanishads. Disregarded, insulted, deceived, envied, beaten, obstructed, or made to suffer by the denial of food by wicked people, or when dirt and muck are thrown at him by the ignorant, and he is shaken in various ways. The sannyasi, desiring welfare, but having fallen into difficulties, shall raise himself by the power of the self, shall raise himself by the power of the Atma. Any honor that is received by the sannyasi erodes the wealth of his penance, of his yoga. On the other hand, when he is disregarded by ignorant people, he attains success in the practice of yoga, as he becomes free of ego because of that ordeal, without in any way transgressing the right conduct of the good. The yogi may move about in such a way that ordinary people may not only disregard him, but they should never even associate with him. The yogi who is absorbed in meditation shall do no harm to beings that are born in a womb, that are born in an egg, and that are born by any other means. He shall do no harm to them by word, by thought, or by physical action. He shall also avoid all associations, abandoning all defects such as passion, anger, pride, greed, delusion, etc. The mendicant monk shall remain free from fear, only eating food that is given as alms, observing silence, observing penance, and specially doing meditation, possessing knowledge and dispassion. These are considered to be the duties of a mendicant monk. Wearing an ochre garment, always devoted to the yoga of meditation, the sannyasi may take shelter for the night at the outskirts of a village, under the shade of a tree, or even in a temple. He shall always live on alms, and he shall never eat food that has been obtained from only one house. A wise man, before he embraces renunciation, he shall always be on the move till he attains purity of mind. Then, after attaining purity of mind, the pure-minded sage shall renounce worldly life and move about here and there. Visualizing God, visualizing the Lord Vishnu as everything, both outwardly and inwardly, The sannyasi shall move about at all times, silent and free from impurity, like the breeze, always equanimous in both joy and sorrow, patient and forgiving, eating what comes to his hand, and seeing everything and everyone with equality and without enmity, such as the twice born Brahmin, the cow, the horse, the deer, etc. The sannyasi shall journey as such, meditating on Vishnu, who is the Supreme Self, who is the Supreme Atma and the Lord Ishan, contemplating on the Supreme Bliss, and always remembering that he is Brahm alone. The sannyasi shall spend his time in this way. In this way, having become wise and possessing complete control over the mind, turning away from all desires, remaining unclad by becoming an avadhut, also discarding all worldly affairs by thought, by word and by deed, and turning his face away from the illusory phenomenal world, the sage becomes liberated from worldly bondage by deep meditation on his self, on his Atma. Yes, he becomes liberated from worldly bondage by deep meditation on his self, on his Atma. Thus ends the fifth Upadesh and the fifth chapter of the Upanishad, and also part 9 of the Upanishad. Om Shanti 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 Om.